Hello everyone, it's me Clayton. I just finished watching Scream 6. And even without Sidney Prescott, this is definitely a big change for the franchise. Not just with the loss of Sidney, but also with the fact that we're in a completely new location. Instead of Woodsboro, we're in New York. And this is set about a year after the events of the first film, because this film also came out a year after the events of the last film. So, as we follow Sam and Tara, as well as Mindy and Chad again, as the new Core 4, we basically get to see a Scream film that goes full meta on its own franchise, while also happening to give us possibly the most brutal Scream film that we've seen yet. Even with a weak finale, it's still probably one of my favorites out of the entire franchise. But let's get to the story, shall we? The story is set a year after Scream 5, when Tara decides to go to college in New York and try to leave this whole serial killer thing behind her. But Tara's sister Sam is believed to be responsible for the Woodsboro killings via online conspiracy theories. And when a new Ghostface killer shows up in New York, tearing apart people in the Big Apple, the conspiracy theories mount again, and it seems that our heroes are in another Scream movie as a sequel to the requel. And with Gale Weathers, once again played by Courtney Cox, coming back, as well as Kirby from the fourth film returning, it's very clear that the legacy characters are completely fair game, and that the new set of killers is discovered. But that's all I'll say about the story. The Scream films have always found new ways of adapting for every sequel when it comes to commenting on the horror genre and the various tropes that it employs. But this film also happens to comment on its own cliches that it makes. Not only with an opening scene featuring a up and coming horror actress, this time being Samara Weaving, but also with several scenes in the film that call attention to the series' own tropes as well as to horror and slasher films as a whole. It's a film that happens to connect its plot to every other Scream film in the series in a way that actually makes a lot of sense given the plot of the bad guys and based on how the series has gone through over these past 30 years, or at least 25 or so years. It goes all the way back to the first killings involving Billy Loomis. It happens to comment on connections with the last film. It even happens to do a smart little subversion with the events of Scream 4, which is rather surprising, so Scream 4 was actually my least favorite out of all the films, and yet Kirby was honestly one of my favorite returns that occurred in the film. On top of that, we get to see how these tropes are used when they're not only subverted but also subverted to the subversion, which would make it back to what it was originally. Basically, unlike something like Velma that tried to comment on those tropes while still playing a lot of the worst ones straight, this one happens to know which ones to play straight and which ones not to play straight. Especially since, like Mindy said about the rules of the film, that the sequel to a requel has to have more gore, this one definitely does. This is not for the squeamish, as there's tons of blood effects, there's tons of gory deaths, and not all of them are done via a knife this time, so the death scenes here, I think, are some of the most spectacular of the entire franchise. However, it's where the finale comes in where things start to go a little downhill. Not to say that the reveal of the killers doesn't make sense, it actually kind of does. It just feels like some of their aspects of their plan and some of the final battle feels like a retread of stuff we've done in the other Scream movies without the actual subversions that the rest of the film has. Which is weird because the finale honestly has the least effective set pieces when the set pieces beforehand were so effective, like the subway scene, or the one in the convenience store, or the one in the apartments. The ones that have appeared in the trailers that really do work well when you get to see them in full in the movie. So, out of all the Scream movies, I think this is like my third favorite of the bunch. Like in the middle when it comes to a whole ranking. It's genuinely a good Scream movie, and I'm glad to see the franchise is able to continue on even without some of the legacy characters. But I do wonder how they're gonna top this one if they happen to go for a Scream 7, which if it does well financially, I'm sure we'll get that. But I'll give this Scream 6 an 8 out of 10. See you next time.